song Only Jesus has a partner, bookends sort of in the record. The other song is called Nobody. When we think about understanding our place in the world and understanding why we're here, there's no one that knew their place better than John the Baptist. I mean, the guy was in the womb jumping up and down about Jesus. Before he was even born, he was pointing to Jesus, and that's all he did his whole life. And then when I was a kid, I just saw a guy who lived in the wilderness and ate locusts and honey and wore bearskins, and that was sort of my picture of him. And he was just sort of this crazy guy that talked about Jesus. But the older I got, the more I started falling in love with the heart of this man, John the Baptist. Because John the Baptist knew his place. He knew why he was here. He knew, I am not the point. I am here to point to the point. And all he did was say that Jesus was coming. And there was a day that came when John the Baptist could have had his moment. He could have had his moment to make a name for himself. Everyone comes to him and they say, John, or they said, dude, tell us who you are. Tell us who you are so we can go tell everyone else. And they were dropping some rock star names on him. They were saying, are you Elijah? Are you Moses? Names didn't get any bigger than that in this time. And in the moment where he had a second, that if he wanted, he could have reached out and he could have taken just a little of that for himself. But he was in the presence of mind and close enough to Jesus in a moment that everyone was looking at him, he wouldn't even tell him his name. And I've read that verse so many times and heard it so many times, I've kind of stopped hearing it. But if you listen to it again, they say, who are you? He says, I'm just a voice out here in the wilderness. It sounds like a poetic statement, but what he's saying is just straight. I'm nobody. You don't need to know me. I've got nothing for you. If you're going to meet me and you're going to leave, the thing that's going to last is going to be Jesus. Because he knew I'm not the point. I'm here to point to the point. And there are times in my life where I would call it a now what moment. There are times in my life when eyes have all been on me, when there has been a winning shot made or a great thing said or a great deed done, and everyone looks our way. What do we do when all eyes are on us? Not only John the Baptist, but Paul has always been a big name for me, a big witness for me. In 1 Corinthians, he said some really strong things. He says this, and when I came to you, brothers, I did not come proclaiming to you a testimony of God with lofty speech or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my speech and my message were not with plausible words of wisdom, but with a demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith might not rest on the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. A word in there jumped out at me a few years ago, and it's the word decided. He said, I didn't come to you with wise and persuasive speech, but I decided to come to you with Jesus and him only. And I always thought that maybe Paul was just this weak, timid little man, but when you start reading about Paul, he was a pretty sharp guy. He had wise and persuasive speech. He was a debater. He could debate the debaters. He was the sharpest tack in the drawer, as my dad would say. But he knew what I'm still trying to learn. He knew that even at my best, there is an end to where I can take you. So if I come to the world with all I have and point to me and all that I can do, I can only take people so far. But if I walk in the room knowing my place, knowing that I'm nobody, I'm just a voice crying out in the wilderness. I'm just one more sinner that Jesus has brought home. I'm just one more broken person made whole. Then people will begin to see how big God's love is and how far he can reach and what he can do. Man, I am nobody to remember, but the Jesus that saved me is the one you can remember.
Nobody but Jesus.